Hey, my name is Ray and you're watching Rayo Books. Today's video is going to be my thoughts on Djeli Clark's novella Ring Shout. I am hoping to turn this my thoughts kind of video thing into a series on this channel. I do want to talk about the books that I've actually read instead of just telling you guys only about the books that I currently have checked out. It's just I've come to realize that I really hate the word book review for me. It just doesn't fit how I feel about books. So I'd much rather just share my thoughts about the books with you guys. So fingers crossed that this is actually going to make it into a series here. And as an extra bonus, I'm also doing it over on my blog as well, rayofbooks.com. I'll leave that linked in the description box below. I first came across this book on Twitter, and then it started infiltrating my YouTube feed. Then it had the nerve to start popping up in articles that I was glancing at. And the last straw was when library patrons started to request it and asked me to put it on hold for them. I was just like, you know what, I just have to read the book. I'm just gonna have to request it for myself. Usually I tend to avoid hyped up books just because I feel like I get too invested in the hype and I start to believe that it's gonna be like the best book I've ever read in my entire life. And that very rarely happens. So usually what I do is I wait until the hype has died down before I request something from the library. But this is the first time in a pretty long time that I've requested something in the midst of the hype. I was amazed at how much world building, character development, and history was jam-packed into a mere 181 pages. Maurice is a badass. Sadie, the foul-mouthed sharpshooter, is a badass. And Chef, the Harlem Hellfighter, she is a badass too. Essentially, it was the holy grail, perfect trinity of badass black women, and I was 110% here for it. While Maurice may be the one with the magic sword, it is definitely her friendship with the other two that makes her magic possible. The ways in which these three women support, help, and criticize each other is so amazingly done. It's so touching to read. It's so sweet to look at. And their friendship as a whole is joyful. It's heartbreaking. It's mesmerizing. It's essentially everything that a friendship should be. And I love, absolutely love that theme of their friendship was such a foundational part of this novella. The monsters in this novella, the Ku Kluxes, are also incredibly well done. Clark's idea of having the real monsters hiding amongst infecting and eventually destroying the human monsters was intense. The fact that this book uses the KKK as a base for the monsters is one of the reasons why I was a little bit hesitant about reading it. Growing up in America and being black in America, of course, you learn about the Klan at a pretty young age. And it can get to be really exhausting and mentally draining, constantly hearing about the killings, the rapings, the tortures, all of the monstrosities that the Klan has caused and still causes today amongst the black community. It's hard to think of something that tops the KKK in terms of monstrosities, especially as a black woman in America. So for Clark to write a novella about the KKK and then make them even more monstrous than what they already are seems like an impossible task, but Clark carried it out with finesse. I honestly can't get over how unsettling the realization that the thing under the hood isn't even a human anymore, but is a real, true, down to its effing core monster. No human should ever feel that much hatred and anger to turn them into what the Ku Kluxes are. Which brings me to the next thing that I really loved about this novella, and that was the importance of emotions. What makes the Ku Kluxes so horrifying is that they thrive off hatred. They are able to spread it, they're able to grow it, and they're able to harvest it for their own nefarious purposes. I've personally always believed that the longer that emotions such as hatred and anger to a degree are held in, the more poisoning and the more damaging it is to your mental and physical health. Ring Shout does a fantastic job of highlighting just how damaging hatred as an emotion is, and the danger of letting one's self fall victim to their hatred, no matter how self-righteous one believes that they are in it. And the last thing that I loved was the culture and the history within this novella. The folk tales, the songs, the shouts, the vernacular were all so elegantly weaved throughout the story. It was amazing. I loved that Nana Jean's portions were written in her vernacular. I'm not even going to attempt it because I could never do a Gullah woman's accent, but reading it and then knowing what it sounds like in my head it's just an amazing thing, and it was just an amazing connection to have with a work of fiction. And I really loved and appreciated how elegantly and tactfully all of the folk lore was introduced in the story. Not only are we being introduced to Ku Kluxes, but we're also being introduced to another pretty prominent monster in the African American community from the slave days. I'm not going to spoil that part of the book because I do think it's a really exciting thing to come across and a really exciting thing to read within the novella, but Ku Kluxes are not the only monsters within this novella. I ended up rating this book 4 out of 5 stars, which is not a bad rating for me. If you're unfamiliar with how I rate things, I strongly suggest giving my New Year, New Ratings video a watch. But essentially, 4 out of 5 stars means that I loved it, I enjoyed it, and I look at my experience reading it as a friendship that has just peacefully run its course. It just means it's something that I wouldn't personally add to my own book collection, but it is something that I will recommend to pretty much every single person that I pass. But more specifically, I would definitely recommend this book to fans of horror, Black women, and just people in general who are looking to get into the horror genre, and women who are looking to read horror with a strong female lead. Of course, this would not be a Raya Books video if I did not recommend a library resource to you guys. Now, this resource I'm pretty sure not everyone is going to have access to, but it would be really cool if everyone did, and I would strongly suggest you check and see if you do. But basically, if your public library is using BiblioCommons in order to provide their online catalog, you might have this feature where it's called "You May Also Like This." So say you're searching for Ring Shout and you don't really know if you're gonna like it, so you could scroll down a little bit and there should be this like "You May Like This" section with other books in it, and you could give that a click and you can see all the books that are, according to BiblioCommons at least, like the book that you're interested in. Personally, it's one of those things that I think is super cool for libraries to have and is a pretty neat little gem of a resource. There are 3 books, however, that I would totally recommend based off my reading experience of Ring Shout. The first of which is The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. The second of which is Beloved by Toni Morrison. And the third of which is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And that is it for my thoughts on A Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark. Let me know if you have read Ring Shout and what your thoughts were on it. And if you have not read it yet, which you totally should, let me know what one of your favorite horror authors is. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out in the YouTube algorithm. And if you ever want to see and or hear me babble about books ever again, please hit that subscribe button. It really does mean the world to me. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day and reading wonderful books, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!